Senator Chuck Schumer decided to give a speech on November 25th at the National Press Club, and he was reflecting back on the Democratic losses in this election, and he had a very interesting idea on what might have caused them. Let's listen.
After passing the stimulus, Democrats should have continued to propose middle-class-oriented programs and built on the partial success of the stimulus. But unfortunately, Democrats blew the opportunity the American people gave them. We took their mandate and put all of our focus on the wrong problem, health care reform. Now, the plight of uninsured Americans and the hardships caused by unfair insurance company practices certainly needed to be addressed. But it wasn't the change we were hired to make. Americans were crying out for the end to the recession, for better wages and more jobs, not changes in health care.
Full facepalm on that. Now you're backpedaling from the Affordable Care Act, from what they call Obamacare. It's almost like begging the Republicans and saying, I'm so sorry, you were right, we never should have done Obamacare, we're so sorry. How pathetic is this? Now, the great irony here is that this speech is why they lost. It's this attitude that infuses the Democratic Party of apologizing for their victories. It's an accomplishment. All these people got insurance that didn't have insurance before. You should have been blaring the trumpets on that. You should have been telling everybody. In fact, by the end of the election, Mitch McConnell was trying to take credit for Obamacare's in Kentucky, the version that the Democratic governor instituted in Kentucky. Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Republicans, was pretending that he was in favor of that. That program that never would have happened if it wasn't for Obamacare. That was part of Obamacare. So while you have the Republicans running towards it, after the election, you have idiots like Chuck Schumer running away from it. And of course, during the election, they all ran away from it. What a defeatist, sad, sad attitude. To come out and say, we're sorry for having done the one major accomplishment during the Obama administration. Pathetic doesn't begin to describe it. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he's going to add craven here. Look at his calculation on how this plays out politically.
The Affordable Care Act was aimed at the 36 million Americans who were not covered. It's been reported that only a third of the uninsured are even registered to vote. In 2010, only about 40% of those registered voted. So even if the uninsured kept with the rate, which they likely didn't, you would still only be talking about 5% of the electorate. To aim a huge change in mandate at such a small percentage of the electorate made no political sense. So when Democrats focused on health care, the average middle-class person thought, the Democrats are not paying enough attention to me.
Oh, that's painful to listen to. So, what do we care about actually helping people, getting stuff done, policies? And the poor, who cares about the poor? They don't vote anyway. Even if they're middle class and they didn't have insurance, screw them. It's only a tiny percentage of the population. Hey, you know what? A lot of them don't vote. Maybe if you told them, hey, you got insurance because of us, you might want to vote. That could be something. You know what the number one problem for the Democrats was in this 2014 election? By all accounts and by the facts, by the numbers. Voter turnout. They didn't turn out to vote for you because they weren't excited by you. Why? Because you didn't even make your own case, which then this speech proves perfectly. Afterwards, you apologize for the actions of your own sides that actually help people. And then you turn around and you say, well, we help people who don't vote enough and who are a small percentage of the electorate. You know, if we just done something that was better for our own greedy selves, it would have been better. Also an answer to that, by the way. How about you do both? You had 60 senators at one point. You had a filibuster-proof Senate. You had the House in the beginning of the Obama term. Why didn't you spend more on the stimulus? Why didn't you do more infrastructure spending? Oh, but no, the Republicans would have been upset. Who cares? I've literally never seen a mandate like that in the country, okay, where the Democrats controlled the White House, the Senate, and the House, and they had 60 senators so they could block Republican filibusters. You should have done your whole policy. That's what they elected you for. Why were they upset in 2010? Why were they upset in 2014? Because you have guys like Chuck Schumer going around saying we should have done less. And he pretends, by the way, later in the speech to be a populist, and he says, oh, you know, we should have prosecuted the banks more. Come on, Chuck. What a funny joke. Do you know who gets the #1 most amount of contributions from bankers in the entire Senate? You guessed it, Chuck Schumer. We didn't prosecute the bankers because of you, Chuck. You said in all the different meetings, no, those are our top donors. I mean, my top donors. Don't go after them, don't go after them. Now, afterwards, after the statute of limitations have run out and you can't really prosecute them, you're going to come back around and pretend that you're a populist? And right after you said, who gives a damn about the poor? They don't vote enough anyway. Why do we bother giving them health care? Yeah, great populism, Chuck. So some people were upset about this. People who worked in the Obama administration, Tommy Vidor said, short of Chuck Schumer, to characterize what he was saying, I wish Obama cared more about helping Democrats than sick people. Well, that's precisely what he's saying, but he's also saying it in such a stupid way that it wouldn't have helped Democrats, it would have hurt Democrats. And John Lovett, who also worked in the administration, said, so what exactly does Schumer believe was the error? Does he believe that the goal of winning office is winning office? Well, John, let me answer that question for you. Abso-frickin-lutely. Of course that's what Chuck Schumer thinks is the point of winning office. To keep his office, to keep his power, to help people. Chuck Schumer has never thought about that in his entire career. The whole point of Chuck Schumer's career is to help himself. I love how these guys treat it as like some sort of big surprise, like, oh, Chuck Schumer, all he cares about is politics and his own career. And by the way, to me, the funniest part is how bad he is at it. Yeah, he's gotten elected, yes, and that banker money has gotten him through a lot of elections, right? And he's a powerful person in Washington. But in terms of advice for the party, well, I mean, he told them to go right, they went right. He told them to appease bankers, they appeased bankers. He told them to cater to the rich, they catered to the rich. How did that turn out? And now he says, we should have wiped away the one accomplishment we had. Even if all you cared about was politics, boy, you have no idea how to play. And finally, this, of course, led to more people talking about this. And then the New York Times, through Thomas Edsall, writes this huge headline, is Obamacare destroying the Democratic Party? The Republicans couldn't have written it any better. Well played, Chuck. Now they'll get to turn around and go, it's bipartisan. Everybody agrees Obamacare is destroying the Democratic Party and the country. And you think they're done going after Obamacare? After I read the New York Times article, after I watched Chuck Schumer's speech, I began to think they might yet still win. They're right now trying to chip away at it. They can't get rid of the whole thing because Obama would veto it, but they're working with other Democrats to see what parts they can take out of it. But if you take enough parts out of it, you know what's going to do? It's going to collapse because the whole thing's supposed to work together. The more parts you take out, the less chance it has of working. So if you think it's over and the Affordable Care Act is here to stay, watch out. That might not be the case because there are Democrats like Chuck Schumer who can't wait to help Republicans take this thing down still.
Mitch McConnell came out and he apologized for the Bush administration because they only catered to the 1% and then also corporate needs and deregulation.
Yep.
They implemented all these policies that only helped a very small portion of the electorate, and they let down everyone else. So of course they came out and said, we've been making a horrible, horrible mistake, going a little too far to the right, and we should change up exactly what we did.
Yeah, no, they're often saying that. After every election, I hear Republicans talking about how they should have been more liberal and gotten rid of their core principles like tax cuts for the rich. You're right, Jared. Good point. To be fair to Chuck, the Republicans are always doing that. You see, if one side is super strong and says, this is our case, we're sticking with it, and we're 100% right, and the other side says, well, they're kind of right, but we're also maybe a little half right, which side do you think is going to win? Apparently, Chuck Schumer still hasn't figured out that simple equation.